Hello, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, can everybody hear me, please?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you too.
Okay, no problem. I will try as much as possible to break the class into 45 minutes because we'd actually be doing the one for yesterday and also today. At any point in time, if you have any question, please let's feel free to ask our question. And if I'm too fast, please just call my notice to it so that I can take it a bit slow, okay? So today we'd actually be treating functions, inbuilt functions, and how to actually write our own custom function. So once again, my name is Aramide. So let's just start with the class. Okay, so what is function? On one hand, you can think of a function as a processing, come in please. You can think of a function as a processing machine that accepts raw input, processes it, and produces refined output. The event activities that took place inside the function is not known, not like we really care, yet it produces a desired output. So this is what we're saying. A function is just anything that once you put, so take a look at this picture now. A function, once you input something, then it gives you an output. Whatever is actually inside the function, we don't know, okay? But we know that once we call that function and we put whatever we need to put inside, then we're definitely going to get an output, depending on what the function is actually doing. So there are different functions, different inbuilt functions in Python. And we've actually been using some, like we have print, we have zip, we have range, we have type, we have string, integer, float, open, length, input, and so on. And out of all the ones I've actually listed, I know we've used print. At a point, we've used zip. When we're actually trying to work with loop, we used range. If you want to know the type of the data type you're using, if you want to know if it is an integer or a float, you declare type on it. If you want to convert to string, you use this function str. If you want to convert to integer, you use this. So today, basically, would actually be treating functions, how to use functions. Although functions we have a lot. I don't even know everything, but it depends on what you want to do. At every point in time, you learn more on the kind of functions you want to use, okay? But today, we'll just be treating the basic ones. So I actually have a link here. We can click on it to read more on functions. So today, basically, we'll just be treating the inbuilt and how to, we can also write our own functions too. So we'll be looking at that today. So we're actually starting with the print function. I would actually give an hint on the assignment I posted, the one on Palindrome and the game. So I will give an hint. So this class as well would help us to know how to go about the assignment. Abimbola, please mute your mic. So this is print function. If the this is actually the input, and the way print function works is once you put the input, it will give you out like this. That's just print. So for zip function. So imagine you have a list A and you have a list B, and let's assume this list now is quantity, and let's assume these are the items we have in the shop. So if I want to actually match the quantity and the items together, I mean, I want, let's say shoe, I have just one, bag, I have two, dress, I have three. So I can actually use zip to the way it sounds like to combine two or more strings together, two or more lists together. So now I'm actually calling the zip function, and I'm saying zip this list and this list. Okay. Now I'm saving it as zipped. So if I'm to print this, let me run this. I'm coming. So you see, this is what is actually returning. It is actually returning a zip function is a generator. It does not return a human readable output when printed. So this is the output. But for me to be able to actually see what actually happened using this zip function, then I need to call a for loop on it. You know, I've zipped it and I saved it against the zipped variable. So I'm saying for item in zip, then print the item. So if I should run this now, then you can see after I've zipped 1, 2, 4, this list, and I've zipped this. So now it is now matching this 1 against shoe, 2 against bag, and 4 against dress. So one of the way zip work is now the length of what you're actually matching together must be the same thing. So imagine if you're having a list that has a length of that has like 4 items, and you have another list that has 3. That won't work because it is definitely matching the first with the first on the second list. So what will happen if you're having 4 and another list is actually 3? So take for instance, let me put 5 here. Coming. Okay. So I'm having 5, but it's actually not matching it to anything because this is 3 and this is 3. Okay. So most importantly, the length must actually be the same thing. So here you must have 3 and here you must have 3 as well. So that is zip function. Zip is just used to what? To like join two lists together. Okay, and it will actually put it in tuples. So if you're talking about another function, list, what list does is just to convert to a list. So you can, however, make a generator object readable by converting it to a known data structure. In example, in the example above, we'll convert the generator object to a list. So anytime you declare this list, okay, take for instance now, coming. Now, let me say my name is Aramide. So let me print name. So this is my name. But if I should call a list, let me say A is equals to list name. Then I'm printing A. So you can see it has actually converted my name to a list. So every alphabet, every character now is taken is more or less like an item in the list. So what this list function would convert whatever you're putting inside into a list. Okay. So now, you know, on a normal day, what I used in printing this was to use a for loop to print, because when I printed the zip, it was not displaying anything. But if I want to print as well without using for loop, now I used zip to actually join this and this together. Then what I did was just to convert this zip. I converted it here to a list. So it is saved against zip to list. Then I printed this. So this is an element, that's a tuple. This is another one, and this is another one. So it has actually created, it has converted the zipped to list. Then I printed it out and I have this. So that is a list function. So I've explained something like this as well. This is a string, which is hello world. Now I'm converting it to a list because this is the function. I'm converting it to a list. Then if I print this, we'll have this. We have another function, which is round function. What round does is just to round something up, okay? So it is used to round numbers to a given precision in decimal digits. So I have num to be 45.6783. So if I want to round it up to the nearest whole number, what I would do is just to declare round on it, okay? But if I want it to be in 2 decimal places, then I'll put the num and I'll put this, okay? Now, let's print it and see. So if I'm rounding it, if I just declare round on it, it will round it up to the nearest whole number, which is 46. But because I'm putting comma 2, then I'm having this, meaning I'm actually rounding it up to 2 decimal places. So there's actually a question now that should pop up in everybody's mind that now, how was I able to know that, okay, this is actually the input variables that round collect? Do you understand? Now, this one is just round num. Now I'm saying round num, comma 2. So how will I be able to know how to actually use it? Yes, I think that's actually the best word to use. So yes, to know of functions, you can read online, but there's actually another function in Python that we call help. So anything you don't know how to use, just call the help function on it, and the help function would actually explain everything you need to know about the function. So help functions should actually be one of our best friends. So if you actually don't know how to use any function, just call help function on it. So take, for instance, I'm calling help on round. I know round is a function, but I don't know how to use it. I know print is a function, but I don't know how to use it. Help itself is actually a function. So if you want to use help, all you need to do is help, then put the name of whatever you want to know about, just put it there. So far it is inbuilt. Okay. So now I'm calling, so I want to know more about round and I want to know more about print. So round is telling me, okay, this is round number, then n digits. So it is used to round the number to a given precision in decimal digits. Default is 0. So what he's saying is, if I actually did not specify this n digits, then it will round it up to the nearest whole number because the default is 0. We would actually do that as well when we are dealing with how to actually create our own custom functions. So, and this is actually the, what is it called? This is the syntax for print. And we've actually treated this in our previous classes. So you print value separator by this. So this will explain all the variables in the print function. So it's saying file is just like a file object where you save your print function to. Now, sep is just a string inserted between values, default. So the default is a space. If you are not specifying this sep, so the variables the print function collects is value sep, but if you are not specifying sep, then the default is actually a space. The end line is, this is end, which is used to specify the end line. If you are not specifying what the end line is, then the default is this, and so on like that. So now let's go down to custom functions. We have a lot of functions. Some of the inbuilt functions we have is sum, we have min. There are different inbuilt functions, and the purpose of this is just, yes, you might actually be writing a program that your main objective is not to add the numbers. Let's assume, okay, let's take for instance now, I'm performing analysis and I need to just find the sum of the column, so to say. That is not my objective, is not to start adding it one after the other. So that's why we actually have inbuilt function. All I need to do is just to call sum on it, find the sum and move on. I should not start writing the code to find the sum. Yes, if that is my objective, I can actually write the code to sum everything up together. But why make life so tedious? There are some functions there are some things we do on a normal day, almost you use it and you use it and you use it frequently. So that's the reason why we have a function, so that instead of rewriting that code, all you need to do is just to put it in a function, and you can just be calling the function as you please or at any point in time when you need it. So this is the syntax for writing a function. You define, so if you want to write your own custom function now everything we've actually treated, everything we've actually talked about is actually the default one, the ones that are inbuilt, that we don't need to just write it. Once you are using an interpreter, it comes with it. But you might decide to want to write your own function yourself. So this is actually the syntax. DEF, it's more or less like you're defining the function, then your function name. This is your function name. You can call it anything you like. Then your argument, followed by this, what is it called? Is it followed by this? Then whatever you want the function to do, that's your line of code, then you return. But it's not all function that returns. It depends on how you want it to work. So take, for instance, now this is our first function. So I'm calling it first func. So this is the name of my function. This is what I'm actually, if this is not there, then it is not a function. So I'm actually defining the function. That's, I'm defining this function with this function name. Now, it does not have any argument because this bracket is empty. And I'm saying what it's doing is just to print, this is my first function. And at any point in time, so this is actually the process. You define your function, you put whatever code or whatever code you want to put inside. So at any point in time when you need to call the function, all you need to do is just to call this name. That's the name in which you use to save it. So take, for instance, sum lists. Now that is the name they use. You know, when we wanted to use the list function, we did something like this. Okay, so this is actually the name, and inside is where you now put your argument. So anything you put inside, then it will definitely convert it to the list. So if you're defining your own function as well, once you're done and you want to use the function, in order to call the function, you just put the name like this, and whatever needs to be done will be executed. So this is it. Okay, let me cut this. So this is me just defining my function. I've defined it. So if I want to call my function, all I need to do is just to call the name like this. Then I'll run. Then it will print, this is my first function, because that is what this function is doing. And this function does not have an input or an argument because I didn't declare the function to have an argument. Okay. So what if we want to write a function that has an argument? So an argument is a value that serves as the input into a function. Okay. It can be just one or many. Example, a function that calculates the mean of a list. So now let's assume I work with lists and I want to write a function in such a way that once I input a list, then it will just give me the mean of that list. But I have an idea of what mean is. Mean is more or less like an average. If I want to calculate the average of anything, the first thing I need to do is what? To sum everything up and count it. Then my sum over the number is definitely going to give me the mean, right? But list can be, I can have a list of 1 million. I can have a list of 100,000. I can have a list of 2. But I just want to write a function that finds, what is it called? The mean, and calculate the mean of a list. So this is what I will do. I'm declaring my function and I'm naming it mean. You understand? So I might say, okay, let's say practical, anything you can, don't let me use this name mean so that I won't think, will not have this idea of maybe it is actually input. So the name of my function is PR_mean. And this is actually the input variable, the argument that is list. Okay. So now this is what I want the function to do. I'm declaring the variable to be TOT sum. And as I've said, sum as well is actually a function. Do you understand? It's an inbuilt function. So I'm calling the sum function on the list. Do you understand? You know, list is actually my, what is it called? List is the argument. Okay. So I'm saying sum everything you have in the list and save it against TOT sum. Okay. Now I'm calling TOT count as well, and I'm saying find the length. Length, LEN, is also a function. Okay. So what this will return is it will return the length of the list. Now, and I know that mean is what? Total over the length. So I'm declaring my mean here, a variable to be equals to this over this, which is actually going to give me the mean. Now, I don't want it to be like, okay, 2.444444. I just want to round it up, okay? So I want the nearest whole number. I want it to return the nearest whole number. So I'm calling this round on the mean I have here, and I'm saving it as this, and I'm printing this, okay? So let's see. Let me bring this out. So I've declared my function. My function is working now. But note, my function is saved PR mean. Okay. So, and this is now the argument. So anytime I know that this function, what this function does is what? Is to find the mean of a list. Now, I'm now imputing this list as, okay, find the mean of this list, and let's see what happens. So it's giving me 5. So automatically it has, instead of me to start finding, adding everything together. So once I call this function on any list to give me the, what is it called? It will give me the mean of that list, because that is what this function is doing. Okay. So let's go to arbitrary argument. So now, the first one we did is an argument. You know, the first function we worked on does not have argument. The second one has argument. What if I want to declare a function that has an arbitrary argument, meaning it can be 1, it can be 2, it can be 3, it can be 4, and so on. So now, and as I've said, I said a function, I said sum is actually an inbuilt function. So what if I actually want to write my own inbuilt function that sums the value of anything imputed? Okay. So I'm declaring my function to be adder. So this is the name of my own sum function. I want to call it adder, or let's say we can call it anything. So let me just call the name of my function adder, and I'm specifying this value. Now this star is saying it is arbitrary, meaning it can be 1, it can be 2, it can be 3. But if this is not there, so let me first, if this star is not there, it can only collect just one input variable. Okay, I can only input just a value. But for me to put star, meaning it is actually uncountable. Okay, so now to find the sum, I know that based on my knowledge about additive inverse and multiplicative inverse, I know if you add 0 to any number, it is that number, or you multiply 1 by any number, it is that number. So I'm declaring my initial sum to be 0. Now I'm saying for I in value, meaning you know value because it is actually having a star, then it can be a multiple of values. You understand? So I'm saying for I in value, come here and add that I to sum all. So let's assume my value is 1, 2, 3. So now, meaning for I in 1, 2, 3, it will first of all pick 1. It will add it to 0 because my initial sum all is 0. So what will happen is 1 plus 0, then it will now be 1. It will go back again and pick 2. Now my sum all now is 1. Okay. Then it will add 1 plus 2 and so on. So that is actually how this loop works. Then I'm saying once you're done, return the last answer, the final answer, which is sum all, because it is actually sum all I used in saving the variable. It is sum all that calculates the sum of all the values. Okay. Now I will explain how this return works. Okay, it is not all functions that has return, but most times we use return. You define and you return whatever you want to return to be like. You know, in a function, you have an input and you have an output. So if you're inputting something and you want the function to calculate, you want the function to calculate something, then whatever the output is, you return it out. Okay. So I'm saying return sum up. So let me come in. let me put this here. So now I've actually I've declared this function. Once you declare a function, it doesn't do anything until you call the function. Okay, you need to actually call the function. So now this is the name of my function, add all. Okay, and I'm saying add 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. So these are the input arguments. So if I run this, it will definitely give me 23. The same thing that the input function sum would do. So let's see sum. Sum expected at most 2 arguments. Okay. So this gives me 23. So the way this inbuilt sum function was designed was just to collect 2 arguments, but mine can collect more than more than 2 arguments. Okay. So what I did was just to convert my input to list. So you can see my add all is actually giving me 23, and sum is also giving me 23. So we can write our function ourselves. Okay. So now let me explain return, how to use return. So far, we have only seen a defined function print out its output. We can decide instead to return the result or even do both. Return is used when we want to be able to assign the output of our function as an object to a variable. Note, Python can only return once from a function. Example. So now let's see this now. I want to write a function that match the name and the last name together, meaning my name is Shegun. Let's assume another person's name is Tunde. Okay. So our name is actually in a list. Our first name is in a list. Okay, our meeting will end in the next 10 minutes. So let me quickly rush up. So the function is actually, I want to write a function that adds my name and my last name together. So I'm declaring the function to collect 2 variables, which is the first names and the last names. So I'm declaring an empty list combine. So I'm using zip. I've actually explained that to zip this first name and this last name together. And I'm saying for name and surname in this. Then I'm using append. I've actually explained that as well. To add this, my name and this, to add it and put it inside this combined list. And I'm returning this. So let's see how it works. So Kunle is my first name. Aribisala is my surname. Emmanuel is another person's name. Okoli is the surname. But I want to be able to match the name and the surname together. Okay. So what I did was just to write a function that matches the name and the surname together. So anytime I actually input name and the last name, it will match it together and give me the person's name. Like, okay, only Aribisala is an entity. Emmanuel Okoli is another entity. So another way in which we can actually write a function as well that has a default value. A default value in the sense that, okay, take for instance, we've explained arbitrary arguments. We've explained if we have 2 or more arguments. So take a look at this. This would collect my first name. So this one has 1, 2, 3. It has 3 arguments. It has 4 actually. 1, 2, 3. Why this is a default argument? A default argument because yes, it is an argument, but I'm actually assigning false to it. You can assign anything, okay? But here I'm actually assigning false to it, and you see how I would. So the purpose of this function is to, on a normal day, some people write their surname in capital letter, okay? So I want to write this function it will collect your first name, your last name, and your middle name, but it will capitalize your last name. Okay. So I'm saying on a normal day, this cap should be false. Now, I'm not if this cap is true, then do this. Okay. This function upper is used to convert this my last name to uppercase. But I'm not saying else, meaning if this cap is not true, then do this. Meaning by default, this cap is false. Just come here and match the names together. Okay. So let's see how this would work. Let me put this here. Let me first of all run this. Okay. So now let's assume I did not declare. If I should just come in. So these are my names. Okay. So the way default arguments work is you don't, if you have a default argument, you don't need to specify the argument because by default, this cap will take false. But if I now want to specify, then I can either specify false or specify true. But if I don't just specify, it will take the value false. Now I'm specifying it to be true. Okay. So now what will happen? It will then capitalize my name. It will capitalize my surname because of what I've done here, the code I've written. Okay. So let me use another example now. So let's assume I want to define a function that finds the square, SQT, that finds the square of two numbers. Okay. Okay. I'm coming. Now, calculate the square of a number. So I'm declaring this function. What this function does is just what? To find the square of a number. So I'm saying define SQ, that's the name of my function, and this is the variable X. Okay. And you know, if you want to find the square of number, it is just you're raising it to the power of 2. So this is returning X times 2. This is raised to the power. Okay. So let me run this. Now, I've declared my function like that. So if I should call SQ4, then it's definitely going to return 16. You understand? SQ4 is 16. Now, let me now treat default function now. Now, let's assume I want a function, okay? Let me explain default now. I want a function, I want to call the function power. Then it should actually collect, it should have two arguments, let's say X and Y, okay? But at any point in time, this Y should be 2. So I'm declaring the default Y to be 2. You understand? And I'm saying return X raised to the power of Y. Okay. So I'm coming. I'll use this to explain something. So this is more or less like me declaring a default argument that Y is true. Okay. So now let me now call power. And I'm saying, what is power 2? Now, power 2 is definitely going to give me 4, right? Now, this is giving me 4 because my default Y is 2. And I actually did not declare Y, okay? But let's assume I want to raise 2 to the power of 3 because this function can actually do it too. Now I'm specifying my value for Y, okay? So this 3 would definitely overwrite the default, which is 2. Now I will now have 2 raised to the power of 3, which will now give me 8. So now the way the default work is, yes, if you do not specify, it will use the default value. But if you specify, it will overwrite what you have before and use your new value. So that is how default function works. Okay. This class will end in the next 2 minutes. So let me go through everything we have. Now this function is used to tell if a function is even or odd. Okay. So I'm defining the function and I'm naming it is even. My output is false. So my output is false if x modulo 2 is 0. Then my output is true. Okay, I'm saying my output is false on a normal day. But if my x modulo 2 is 0, then my output is true. Okay, so at any point in time when this is not true, then my output is false. And I'm now returning output. So let's see. So I'm saying if this input is 8, is it even? Then I'm calling this is even 8. The is even is the name of my function. Then the input or the argument is 8. Then I'm repeating the same thing and I'm calling 13. Now, 8 is even, so it is telling me yes, it is true because that is the way the function was defined. But is 13 even? Because it doesn't satisfy this, the output is false, and I'm asking the function to return output, so it will return false, and that's why I'm having this. Okay, so let's stop and we'll restart the class in 2 minutes to actually finish what we have on function because we have just 45 minutes. So I'll stop the class now and just let's rejoin. Okay, so I'll be waiting for us. Thank you. So let's just wait like 3 minutes for others to join using the previous link. Um, okay, sorry for the break. We can actually use the, what is it called, 45 minutes until we upgrade the Zoom. So that's the reason why we had to just take the break. So let me continue. So as I've said, this function is actually used to detect or to test if the input is even or not. Okay. So I'm declaring output to be false. But if it is only true if my x modulo 2 is 0. What this is just saying is if x divided by 2 and the remainder is 0, then the output is true. Then I'm returning this. Okay. So if I should call is even on 8, is even is the name of my function. If I should call 8 on it, then it will be true. If I should call 13, it will be false. So this is it. Okay. So this is still the same thing. I'm saying return x modulo 2 without using the even or without using the true or the false. So the first function I explained, you can as well write it in this format. And I actually did not remember to explain something. So let me call this. So as I've said before, you use this diff to declare your function, def. Then this is your function name. This is your input argument, okay? Then if your function is just a line, you can use the return. You can just say return and write whatever you want to do, your line of code. But for simplicity's sake, okay, you can say, okay, let me call it A is equals to. Now, this is actually what the function is doing, right? So this is what the function is doing, okay? This is what the function is doing. So I'm defining the function to be 7, and this is what the function is doing, A. So all I need to do is just to return this A. So you can either write whatever you need to do. I know that my final output is A, then I'm returning A, or you can just, since it is just a line, you can just come here and put and return that line, which is a line of code. Either ways, whichever you find with, it will work. Okay, so this is it. So these are recursive function. Recursive function like Fibonacci and what is it called? Fibonacci and factorial. So this function finds what is it called? Fibonacci in the range of 20. You know what Fibonacci does is what? To take a number and the previous number and add it together. Okay. So take for instance, this is 0, this is 1. So the previous number is 0. It will add 1 and 0, it will give us 1. It will add this and this, it will give us 2. It will add 2 and 1 to give us 3. It will add 3 and 2 to give us 5. So that is how Fibonacci works, okay? So I'm declaring my function and I'm calling it FIB. N is the input variable, okay? So I'm saying if n is less than or equals to 1, then return n. So if you're saying fib 0, it will return whatever. So fib 0 is 0, fib 1 is 1, okay? Now, I'm now saying fib. Now, okay, let me explain this. So initially, I'm saying if my input variable is 0 or 1, Fibonacci 0 is 0, Fibonacci 1 is 1, but Fibonacci 2, okay, is what? So I'm saying if n is less than or equals to 1, return this. Else, come here and say, okay, return. So if n is not 0 or 1, if n is 2, okay, meaning my n is 2, right? Meaning n is greater than 1, then it will come here and find fib. You know, my n is 2. That will be fib 2 minus 1. That's fib 1, okay, plus fib 2 minus 2. That's 0. So what is fib 1 plus fib 0? We know that fib 1 is 1, fib 0 is 0. So it will add it together and return it. That's still 1. So what if my fib is, okay, don't let me use this. So I've actually explained how Fibonacci works, right? So let me say fib 0. Fib 0 will give me 0. What is fib 1? Fib 1 will give me 1. Okay. Now, what is fib 2? Now, fib 0 and fib 1 is giving me 1 and 0 because it is less than 1. And I've said, okay, if n is less than or equals to 1, just return n. But if n is not less than or equals to 1, come here and do this. So this is recursive. A recursive function is a function that calls itself during execution. So my function itself is fib, right? But I'm still now calling this fib function to say, okay, if n is not 1, if n is greater than 1, then do fib. This one will now be 2 minus 1. That's fib 1. Then 2 minus 2. That's 0. Fib 1 is 1. Fib 0 is 0. Add it together, it will return 2, right? Sorry, fib 1 is 1. Fib 0 is 0. 1 plus 0 will return 1. So now let's see what will fib 3. Note, recall that fib 2 is 1, right? So if my n is 3, here I'll have fib 2, okay? Because I'll have 3 minus 1, that's fib 2, plus 3 minus 2, that's fib 1. Fib 2 is 1. Fib 1 is what? 1. 1 plus 1 will give me 2. So this will return 2. Okay. Note, fib 3 is 2. Do you understand? Fib 3 is 2. Fib 2 is 1. So let's call fib 4. If I'm calling fib 4 will be, because my n is 4, this one will be fib 3, right? While this one will be fib 2. Fib 3 is 2. Fib 1, fib 3 is 2. Fib 2 is 1. 2 plus 1 is 3. So now this is an example of a recursive function. A recursive function is a function that calls itself. Do you understand? Because I'm in the function, I'm still calling the function I'm declaring again. All right. So that is how recursive function works. And the same thing for factorial. I'm declaring factorial to be x, and I'm saying if x is less than or equals to 1, then return 1. Else return x times factorial x minus 1. It is recursive because I'm still calling, now this is me calling the function I'm declaring. That makes it recursive. And we all know how factorial works. 2 factorial is what? 2 times 1. 3 factorial, and this is actually a perfect example. 2 factorial is 2 times 1. 3 factorial is 3 times the previous factorial, which is 2 factorial. 4 factorial is 3 times the previous factorial. That makes it 4 times 3 factorial, right? So, meaning factorial x is what? X times factorial x minus 1. So this makes the function a recursive function. Okay, so this is 7 factorial. If I want on 1000 factorial, oh, I'm coming. Okay, maximum recursive depth exceeding. Okay, so let me limit this to 10. Now this is 10 factorial. All right. So our exercise. So I will post this in the classroom. So write a function that converts Naira to dollar at an exchange rate of 360. Now I've actually created a template. All we need to do is what? To just write your code. Okay. So I would explain this, right? Then we'll do the rest. Okay. And I'll also give an hint on the last assignment. So let me write a function that converts Naira, that converts dollar to Naira. Okay. So I'm declaring my function as exchange. Then the input variable is Naira. Okay. And I know that my Naira, meaning $1 is 360. Okay. So now so let me say dollar. Okay. So if I'm converting Naira to dollar, if I'm converting Naira to dollar, then let's call this dollar, right? Dollar is equals to Naira divided by 360. because I'm converting naira to dollar. Okay. And I know that $1 is 360 naira. Then if I have, that is just basic mathematics. Converting naira to dollar, if $1 is 360, is more or less like dividing the value of the naira by 360. Now, this is my final answer. Okay. I'll come here and say return dollar. Okay, so I'm done with this function. So at any point in time, let's convert 360 naira, so to say, exchange. Then I'll call my 360. So I'm now converting 360 naira. It will give me what? $1. If I have 1,000 naira, this is 10,000. So let's work with 10,000. 10,000 naira is $27. Now you can use round, you can play with it. The basic is just to understand how to use function and how a function work. Okay, so let's assume I'm actually writing a program that I know that, okay, I would need to be converting naira to dollar. Instead of repeating the code again, all I need to do is write the code in a function. At every point in time when I need to convert, I will just go and call the function, which is one of the advantage of writing your code in function. You don't need to repeat what you've done. All you need to do is to call the function and it will do whatever you need it to do. So far, that is what the function is meant to do. Okay, so I've actually done this for us. So our second assignment will be write a function that returns the first 3 letters of a name. So now my own name is Aramide. It should return just Ara. Your name is Babatunde. It should return Bab, B-A-B. So now you are meant to write a function that would only return what? The first 3 letters of a name. Remember, int. I've actually taught us on how to what? How to slice. Okay, let me give us the int. So if my name is Babatunde, okay, and I want BAB, okay, all I need to do is what? To slice, because I know B is 0, A is 1, the second B is what? 2. So this should give me BAB, right? So that is just the int. It is a recap of what we've done before. This is what I want, all right? So now write a function that returns the first 3 letters of a name, okay? So all you need to do is to work on this. You can decide to start yours from the beginning. It depends. You can decide to work on what I've done, okay? So the name of the function is strip. So once you call strip on whatever you're inputting, for instance, if the function is working perfectly and I call strip on Alice, it should return Ali, okay? Why the last one is write a function that finds the grade of a student using this scale. So now I've started, I called my function grader. You can call it whatever. You can decide to work with this, or you can decide to declare your own name. It all depends. So now what this function will do is, once you input any student score, it should tell you if the student has A, B, C, D, or F, okay? And if you return a list like this, it will assign, this is definitely going to be F, this is D, this is C, this is B, and this is A. So write a function that will give you the grade of whatever score, okay? So that is that on today's assignment. So let me give us hints on the assignment I posted earlier before we move to today's class. So I'm saying the first question, a word or phrase or a sequence that reads the same backward as forward, e.g. madam. Now, if you read madam from the front, you have madam. If you read it backward as well, is madam. Same as nurses run. If you read it like this, it is nurses run. If you read it like this, it's nurses run. Ada. If you read it from the front, is ada. Backward is ada. So write a function. You can either use a function, yes. Now, I even want it to be a function. Now, I think yes. So let's, the assignment is now to write a function that once you input anything, it will tell you if that word is a palindrome or not. Okay. Now, the hint I gave earlier was to read on reverse function. So let's assume my name is Babatunde. Okay. But on a normal day, the way you are actually meant to do this is to use an input to collect the name. But I don't want to start writing the input function. So I just want to use this as a test. Okay, my name is Babatunde. And let me call reverse on it. And let me print name. This won't work. It will definitely give me an error because reverse function does not work on string. You can see the object is string. Object has no attribute reverse, but reverse would work on a list. So what will I do? So what I would do is what? To say name list. This is, it can be anything. I'm just declaring a variable. And I want to convert name to list. Okay. So if I should print this, I've actually converted Babatunde to a list. We've treated that before. This is me calling a list function on the name. Okay. Now, all I need to do is what? To call reverse on this. If I should call reverse on this, you can see that it has spelled Babatunde from the back, right? Now this is Babatunde and this is what I need, okay? So now the idea is just comparing this name list, okay? So let me call this name 1. Let me convert this to a list 2. Okay. So I'm converting the real Babatunde to a list. I'm calling it name 1. Okay. Then I converted it to this and I reversed it. Okay. So if I should print name 1, definitely I would have Babatunde converted to a list. So this is it. So the idea is me comparing name 1 and name list. If it is the same thing, then that word is palindrome, right? So I would now say if name 1 is equal to name list, then print it is a palindrome. Else, print it is not a palindrome. So let's see. Let me delete this. Definitely, Babatunde is not a palindrome, right? So let me change this to Ada. Ada is definitely a palindrome. It is a palindrome. So this is what I was actually expecting. Okay. So what I just need is what? convert this to a function. So all I need to do is call the function like this. Let's say palindrome function. Sorry. Palindrome. And I will just put ada. So if ada is a palindrome, it will return it is a palindrome. If ada is not a palindrome, it will return not a palindrome. Okay. So that is that for today's class. Okay. Then by 4:40, let's join using this link so that would treat how to actually work with a fab. That shouldn't take more than 30 minutes. So by 4:40, please, let's kickstart today's class. Thank you very much. Oh, you have a question? Sorry. So you can unmute and ask your question, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the time.
Okay.
I have an observation. I think the lecture note you sent to us, was it
has
yesterday?
Changed. Yes, it changed. Now, I'm actually going to post this now. The mistake I made was when I was actually preparing today's lecture notes, okay, I was writing it on the link I posted yesterday. So what you'll be seeing now is lecture 6 instead of lecture 5. Yes. So I will be posting this, and by tomorrow, the video to today's class, the 2 classes will be ready. Yes. So I will post this, I will repost this. Thank you very much for that observation. Thank you very much.
All right, and then I want to ask, how do we call a function like a drop down of functions? I see you kind of bring some drop down of functions.
Okay, are you talking about this? Is it this you're talking about?
No. For example, if you want to call a function, there is this a drop down that comes.
Okay, I get your point now. Yeah. So I'm coming. Okay. So I've declared this now, right? So you're saying something like this.
Yes.
So let me try and call fib. Okay, I'm coming. I think I have an idea of what you're saying. Let me say round.
Okay.
Something like this, right?
Yeah, something like this, but it usually comes with a whole lot of functions. Maybe, for example, if you type the first letter, probably other functions with that same first letter may just show up as a drop down. Something like this, yes.
Oh, no, this is just the interpreter's AI. Do you understand? At any point in time, if you want to work with any function, okay, Python doesn't expect you to know everything. So let's assume you've used round before and you are not actually sure. At any point in time when you're typing, it will even be suggesting. Do you understand? So I know that round is a function. It would suggest to me the way the function works, even without calling help. Now it is actually telling me, okay, this function exists and this is what it does. That the default end digit is 0. You understand? Once you just open your own collab and try to do something, it will be suggested. Even if it is your own defined, what is it called? Your own custom function. Once you declare the function and you're working with it, it will be suggesting things to you. Okay, so it is not me doing anything. It is just the interpreter's AI doing its magic.
Okay, I get it. Thank you very much.
Right.
Then how about the int for the second assignment, the game?
The link?
No, the int for the game.
Okay, thank you. The int to the game. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So this is the game. The game is saying create a guessing game. However, the range to guess is from 1 to 10. Okay. Of course, it will be tedious. It will be a tedious game if we had to guess a number from 1 to 10 without any int. If the guess number is less than the actual number, note, our objective is what? To guess between 1 and 10, right? But we are not telling the person that the person should guess between 1 and 10. We are just telling the person to either, to play the game. So the game is, if your guess is between 1 and 10, let's assume you won. Okay. If your guess is greater than 1 and 10, then it should tell you that you should bring your guess lower. So it's more or less like me telling you, okay, Babatunde, guess a number, and you say 85. Now I'm telling you, no, bring it down. Then you guess 60. I'm telling you to bring it down. You can come to 45. I'm still telling you to bring it down. Now I'm giving you hints because I'm actually telling you that what you're guessing is more than what I'm expecting, right? Now, if your guess is minus 100, I should tell you to step it up. Then you definitely move to minus 50, minus 10, till you actually give me a number that is in the range of 1 to 10. Okay? So this is actually simple. It is just using an if statement. Okay? So now, on a normal day, you are meant to use an input function. But let me just use this to be, let's say, 45, 56. Okay? No, now, my if, so if my guess, okay, if my guess is less than 0, okay, so let's follow. If the guess is less than the actual number, then the program should print your guess is smaller than the actual number. So it should print your guess is smaller. Let me just stop here because of time. Then, if the guess is greater than the actual number, the program should print your guess is greater. Else if, okay, else if my guess is greater than 10, okay, then you can print your guess is bigger. Then definitely my else is, so if it doesn't satisfy this and it doesn't satisfy this, definitely the person gets right. So you can come and say maybe successful or something, print successful, right? This one will test whatever. So this is just like the basic, okay? I'm coming. I don't know why. Let me restart my runtime. Sorry, a minute. Now, you can see that my guess is 55, right? My guess is 56. Oh, I have less than 10 minutes. Okay, I'm coming. Now my guess is 56. So this will be initiated, okay? If my guess is 10, it's definitely, let me say my guess is 9. It's definitely going to be, definitely going to print successful. So this is the basics, right? But the code is telling you to what? To give the person 3 trials, okay? So I can first of all start with for trial in range, for trial in range 3. Now, if I'm printing for trial in range 3 and I say print trial, then it's definitely going to print 3, 1, 2. So this is more like a loop to tell me that, okay, you know, 4 is just like a loop telling the system to do the thing, to execute the program 3 times, okay? But now I'm actually done with the basic, right? So if you want it to work like that, then you should come here and say, now at this stage, you now start your if statement, because when trial is 1, it will execute, go back again, execute, go back again, and execute, okay? But now let me give us another hint. I can say, So this is just me playing with print format, okay? So I use trial. Oh, sorry. So you see, it will print trial 3, trial 2, then. So this will print trial 3, trial 2, trial 1. So here I will just put my if statement. So if I'm wrong, it will go back again and ask. So let's just play around with it, okay? If by Friday we still don't get it, but I've actually explained the basic if statement. Then work around with this, put your code inside the loop to actually tell the system that it should run the program 3 times. So this is just like my own FEZ to say, okay, the first time it will print 3. If you're wrong, it will come back again and print trial 2. So now I will now put my input. Okay, so let me give us an int input. Let me now come here and say guess. Guess is equals to input. What is your guess? And I'm coming here to now print my guess. You will see. So let's see how this will work. So let me run. So he's asking me that trial 3, that's the first one. My guess is 4. It's coming back to ask again. Okay, guess another number, 6. And it will come back again to tell me, okay, trial 1, that's my last trial, to say, what's my guess, 5. So that is actually still explaining how loop work, because my code is actually indented. It is inside this for loop. So it will be executing, it will be repeating itself 3 times, okay? So I think that should work. Let's just let's try something out. The basic is just for us to try. And for everybody that actually try to solve this, I will post my own solution. I will definitely post it on the person's notebook. I won't share it with everybody. But it's actually like a bonus for everybody that try this assignment, so that the person can actually read through and at this point, we should actually be able to read through somebody's code and understand what the person is actually trying to do. Because now we are familiar with how Python work. So even if you don't know what the person is doing initially, you can read the person's code and understand at this stage. I want to believe that. So I will share my code with whoever submit the assignment for the person to read through. I'm not saying mine is the best, okay? That is the way I approached it. You can approach it in another way. That is just the power of programming. So let's take a break. By 4:45, I'm assuring us that our next class won't take more than 30 minutes, please. So by 4:45, by 4:55, the same link, let's just click on the same link and we'll definitely start today's class, and by 30 minutes will be done. Thank you very much.